We're going to be using Google Earth or Google Earth Pro as a way to build up your layers of design, and I would really recommend using this tool. In our past work, we've used various different advanced design softwares, including MapInfo Professional and Real-Time Landscaping Architect Professional, which I would recommend to sign up for a free trial for if you want to look into Keyline layouts. And only to purchase that program if you're quite serious about using that for design, because it's a several $100 program. But the reason I've gone off using, I sometimes use QGIS as well to extract maps in our circumstance where the country has been laser mapped in working with the certain file type we receive here. But I think Google Earth is very nice to work with because you can save files as KML files and email them and get other people to be able to open up your property, and it instantly has a geo-reference anywhere in the world. And it's just easy to use. It saves so much time. Here's the farm here. I've actually got over here on the left a 50 centimeter contour map overlaid in the correct place. When you're overlaying a map, you're lining up features in the landscape. I can see the road cut here, and I can see the stream beds, so I can fiddle around with this program to line up the map. And you see, it's very easy to build up layers of design in this way and turn different lines and information on and off. So if I go over here, I can easily toggle the map on and off. And if I right click and say get info, I can then move this around if I want to. It's perfectly lined up right now, so I'm going to leave it. The other tools we'll be using are up here on the ruler, and you can also access these from the menu bar at the top. But the ruler, and what's nice about Google Earth Pro, is it allows us to measure polygons. So we can measure lines, and it knows the crow's eye view distance, as it were. And we can measure paths, which are curving lines with multiple points. And what's nice, say for example I want to save that here, I can change the color. So if I want it to represent the sort of cadastral layer, the boundary of my farm, I might leave it in red. I can change the thickness if I like so. And I can make it more or less opaque, so I can make it visually attractive. And I can change the name, so I'm calling this road, and then I say OK. And what you see here is it's over in your temporary places. Now I'm going through the very basics because some people will obviously know how to use this program already and others won't. But it's important, I think, we have a common language for building up design work, because it's very easy to then upload a KML file, have other people go and look at your project for you, or if they're interested to follow your design work. But it keeps it all in one place and allows you to toggle all these layers on and off, which is a nice way to clearly communicate design. If I right click here on the temporary places, I can say save to my places. And that means it'll always be there when I load up Google Earth, and I can toggle it on and off as I wish, but it's there when I need it. And the important thing about having a scaled design map is that it's really the distances that we need so that we can create bills of quantity. For example, if I've laid out my keyline pattern and I want to plant trees, it's only this number, 122 meters, that I need. I can obviously change this to feet or yards, whatever it is. But it's that information I want to save. I'm going to call this tree lane 1. I'm going to make it green because that makes sense. And I'm going to make it a bit less opaque. And I want it wider so it represents a sort of wider mark on the landscape, like so. And I'll save it here. And again, I can right click and save to my places, so it will always be there. That's so important because once I've laid out all these different tree lanes or whatever it is I'm doing, it could be a fence post, fence line around the field, then I can tally these up. I can right click, say get info and measurements, turn that back to meters. So 122 meters. Well, if I'm planting a fruit tree every 4 meters, it's very quick to add up how many trees I need to order. I might add a 10% margin in case any trees fail. Likewise, I would work with fence posts. If I'm, putting a fence around my field, let's do that here with a polygon. And the nice thing about a polygon rather than a path is it measures the interior area too. So let's say, how big is this pasture in what we're calling top field in our farm? And how would I build a fence? How much fence material would I need, and what will that cost me? Because I got to plan that into my budget. So I marked my way around the field. Obviously you can zoom in and get very accurate, but here you see 670 meters and 1.87 hectares of grazing. So these are nice, these polygons, because I might keep that as fence around top field. But what I want to do here is keep the red fence, but I'm going to color the area now in green to represent one of my grazing cells. And I might put it down to 20% transparency, just so that it's not, let's go back to that, so that it's not too intense to look at. Let's go back to here. So area, outline and filled, that's what we needed. So you can see if I put it up to 80%, it's quite intense to look at. We don't really want that for the clarity of our design work. So it's really nice to be able to put that down to 20%. Okay, and I would save that, again, right click, save to my places. Now, if I wanted to email someone else that exact line, what I can do is right click and save place as, and it will come up as a KMZ file or KML file. Then I can save this to my desktop and I can email it to someone, and when they open that with Google Earth, it will automatically come up in the exact geolocation you see here. So it's a way to, if you want someone to have a look at your farm, or be able to communicate your design work over time with other people in the group. So it's a very neat tool, and what we can see is there's other tools here. Like one thing we did when we were looking for property is we wanted to establish the marketplace within 50 kilometers of the farm. So what we did then is we took a radius of kilometers and drew a circle. It's going to be a much different scale of 50 kilometers. And what you see is it takes in our main marketplace in Karlstad. I'm going to save that one as our selling radius. Save that to my places. This is the main selling point, Karlstad, where we sell. We also sell in Sunne, our local town. We're here. This is the center of the circle there. We also sometimes sell to Arvika over here. So it gave us a way to look at the population count in the area we're willing to deliver to. Another thing we did is we overlaid the climate map of Sweden, and we were trying to narrow down properties within certain climate zones, and our climate zones in Sweden go the opposite way to American climate zones. So climate zone 1 would be the warmest down here in the south. We want it to be no higher than 4. But what's interesting about Sweden is because of the inland sea, you get the same climate zone in the same latitude we are to Stockholm, goes all the way right to the north of Sweden. Sweden's a very long country, but there's properties up here with the same climate zone because they're right next to the water. We're actually a bit colder than Stockholm because we're inland. There's large mountain ranges here that take some of the effect of the Gulf Stream, and then it gets colder on this side. But that's very interesting because as well as that factor climatically, we're in a little microclimate from this lake, and we're also on this lake, and so we're actually in the middle of 3 climate zones, all balanced around zone 4, which was our ideal target. But we have properties of zone 5 and properties of zone 3 also because of the local topography. But this is a very neat tool, so I think it's the simplest way. If you're already familiar with more advanced design software, then by all means use what you're comfortable with. But I found that more and more in my work, unless someone was paying me for, detailed visual design, I will always go towards Google Earth because it's just easier, faster, and I like it. You can play around with it quite a lot. You can add photos to it. You can look back in time. If we go back here, we see the drainage works. So you often see things that you could never see because of the landscape changing. I like looking at the green screen, so it's back in time. Google Earth hasn't updated to show the work we've done on the land. You can also look at different patterns here using the top bar. So it's very handy, and it's very nice to be able to get insight into your land by using those different features. You can also add pins to help you find things. If you click on the pin here, so if you want to mark other people's properties that you want to follow, etc., you can do it like so. So that's the way I do it. Just create a nice labeling system over here, and you see the functionality where, you know, say we were building a fence around our field. That's on this one. If I go back to my get info, if I was building a fence here and I was doing a 5-wire strand fence, then my measurements become really important because I need 5 times 670 meters plus, you know, 5% for tying knots and etc. So that tells you immediately how much wire you need to order, and each time you have a major change of direction, you're going to need an extra fence post assembly or a corner assembly. So you can get in there and put those in if you like to. Something to be aware of using this, like in the example just seen now, is the dot that's highlighted is important, because if I want to put another dot in and get round this corner, you see how I click the previous one in line and I can add another one. That allows me to get more accurate around bends, things like this. Another little trick with using Google Earth is to double click on the north, and it always brings it back to north. I always like to make sure I'm working vertically, which you do by holding this arrow down. Oh dear, we don't want that. We'll cancel that. You hold down and move the screen around like this, obviously, but it's nice to work vertically. That's just my preference, because I like to be looking down at it like a paper map. I'm used to paper maps. But clicking north twice is really nice to center the map again. So just remember to save everything into your permanent places, and then you can always toggle those things on and off. And it allows you to build up layers of design, first fences and water systems and tree systems as we go through the training. So you should end up with a completed sort of visual layout. But what's much more important than the visual communication of the design is the data behind it, the bill of quantities that you're building up with spreadsheets every time you do any of this design work. So once you've put your fences on there, there should be an accompanying spreadsheet with all the resources you need to build that fence and the cost and the suppliers you're going to get that from. And if you just do this step by step with every element of the farm, putting in water pipes from the well around the fields with quick releases, we need this many quick releases, it allows you to build up a very concrete budget for what this project's going to take. And then the skillful element of designing the business will be how to carry that out in the time frame that you need to. So get familiar with this program. It's a good starting place to do effective detailed design without having to learn a whole new complicated program.